Hold on. Do not scroll past this video just yet. Imagine reaching into an old, dusty glass jar sitting on the top shelf of your grandfather's garage, plunging your hand into decades of forgotten pocket change, and pulling out a handful of dark, sticky, green-spotted pennies. To the average person, these look like absolute garbage. Most people would not even bother taking them to a bank to cash them in. They look ordinary, worn out, and practically worthless. But here is the shocking reality that the vast majority of people will never understand. Hiding inside those jars, buried beneath decades of dirt, natural oxidation, and heavy circulation, are some of the most historically significant and potentially valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint. Thousands of people accidentally spend these coins at grocery stores, drop them into tip jars, or leave them behind in vending machines every single day simply because they do not know what to look for. Today, we are going to change that forever. We are taking an incredibly deep dive into 3 specific years of the iconic Lincoln Wheat Penny series. Coins that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, yet today they command the absolute respect of advanced collectors all over the world. Before we go any further, I need you to make one very important promise. If you happen to find one of the old pennies we are about to discuss today, do not spend it, do not throw it away, and whatever you do not attempt to clean it until you have heard everything in this video. One tiny detail, one microscopic difference in the strike, or one perfectly preserved surface could completely change how the professional collecting community views your coin. Sometimes the darkest, most weathered-looking coins tell the greatest stories and hide the largest fortunes. Let us begin uncovering the secrets behind these remarkable pieces of American history. 1947, Lincoln Wheat Penny. Our journey begins in a year of massive transition, a time when the United States was rapidly rebuilding itself after the devastating conclusion of World War II. The year is 1947. Millions of soldiers had returned home. Factories that once produced military equipment were transitioning back to consumer goods, and the American economy was experiencing an explosive period of growth. During this incredible era of optimism and expansion, the United States Mint was tasked with an overwhelming responsibility. They needed to produce enough currency to keep a rapidly accelerating economy moving smoothly. In 1947, across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mint facilities, the presses ran tirelessly, striking millions upon millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies. These coins flooded into cash registers, pockets, and purses across the nation. No one back then could have possibly imagined that more than 7 decades later, highly specialized numismatists would be searching through massive hordes of inherited collections, hoping to find that one perfect, untouched survivor from this specific year. When you hold a 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny in the palm of your hand, you are holding a physical artifact from a defining generation. Take a very close look at the front of the coin, technically known as the obverse. You will instantly recognize the familiar, enduring portrait of President Abraham Lincoln facing to the right. This magnificent portrait was originally designed by the highly acclaimed sculptor Victor David Brenner all the way back in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The design was so powerful and so beloved by the American public that it remained entirely unchanged by 1947. Arching gracefully across the upper rim of the coin is the inspiring national motto, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln's portrait sits the word liberty, a stark reminder of the values the nation had just fought a global war to protect. To the right of the portrait, you will see the date 1947. Now, depending on where your specific coin was manufactured, you might see a tiny letter resting directly beneath that date. If there is a small d, it means the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. If there is a small s, it originated from the San Francisco Mint. But if that space beneath the date is completely blank, it is not a mistake or an error. A missing mint mark simply indicates that your coin was born at the main facility in Philadelphia, which did not stamp its coins with a mint mark during this era. Experienced collectors instantly check this exact spot the moment a 1947 penny lands in their hands, as the mint mark dictates the surviving population and the overall rarity of the specific issue. Turn the coin over and you will discover the beautifully simplistic reverse design that gave this beloved series its famous nickname. Two elegant curving stalks of wheat frame the outer edges of the coin, symbolizing the vast agricultural power and natural wealth of the American heartland. Across the very top of the reverse, you will find the traditional Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Directly in the center, stamped in large, bold, unmistakable lettering, are the words 1 cent, with United States of America resting directly beneath it. This reverse design is a masterpiece of early 20th century American coinage, capturing a sense of rugged strength and enduring stability. Despite looking small and feeling practically weightless in your hand, the 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny was engineered with absolute precision. It is composed of an alloy consisting of 95% pure copper, with the remaining 5% made up of a mixture of tin and zinc. This specific bronze recipe is what gives the freshly minted wheat penny its blazing, fiery red appearance. The coin weighs exactly 3.11 grams, measures exactly 19.05 millimeters in diameter, and possesses a thickness of approximately 1.52 millimeters. The edge of the coin is perfectly smooth and plain, without any of the ridges or reeds you would find on a demi-monde or a quarter. These exact specifications are incredibly important. When advanced collectors and professional authenticators evaluate a coin, they measure these physical properties down to the microscopic level. A coin that deviates from these measurements could indicate a counterfeit, an altered piece, or an incredibly rare wrong planche mint error. Now we must address the single biggest mistake that ruins the value of these coins every single day. When the average person finds a 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny, it rarely looks like a shiny new penny. Because it is made almost entirely of copper, the metal chemically reacts to the environment over decades. It reacts to the moisture in the air, the oils from human fingers, and the materials it was stored inside. This natural process is called oxidation, and it causes the coin to turn dark brown, deep chocolate, or even black. In some cases, exposure to certain environmental elements will cause the copper to develop thick green spots known as verdigris. When everyday people see this dark, dirty, spotted surface, their first instinct is to clean it. They think they can increase the coin's value by scrubbing it with a toothbrush, soaking it in vinegar, or polishing it with harsh chemical cleaners until it shines like a brand new coin. This is an absolutely catastrophic mistake. Experienced collectors do not just want old coins, they want original coins. The dark coloring, the deep brown patina, and even the natural environmental spotting are proof that the coin has aged honestly. It is a testament to its survival. When you take a chemical cleaner or an abrasive cloth to a 1947 wheat penny, you are literally stripping away a microscopic layer of the original minted metal. You are destroying the delicate flow lines created by the striking press, leaving behind millions of tiny, unnatural hairline scratches that professional graders can spot under a magnifying glass in a fraction of a second. An honestly worn, naturally dark, and heavily circulated 1947 penny is always vastly preferred over a coin that has been artificially shined. Once that original surface is destroyed by cleaning, the coin's historical integrity is gone, and its premium collector value drops to almost zero. Therefore, the absolute golden rule of coin collecting remains unchanged. Never under any circumstances clean your old wheat pennies. What really drives the value of a 1947 Lincoln Wheat Penny in today's highly competitive numismatic market is an obsession with preservation. Because millions of these coins were produced, finding one in poor or heavily circulated condition is relatively easy. A well-worn 1947 penny with flattened wheat stalks and faded lettering might only be worth a few cents over its face value. However, the true fortune lies in the extreme higher ends of the Sheldon grading scale. The Sheldon scale evaluates coins from a grade of 1, meaning the coin is barely identifiable, all the way up to a flawless grade of 70. Collectors of the 1947 series are relentlessly hunting for coins that grade mint state 66, 67 or higher. These are coins that somehow managed to completely escape circulation. They were pulled from the mint presses, placed into canvas bags, and hidden away in a dark, climate-controlled environment for over 70 years. When a 1947 penny survives in this kind of miraculous uncirculated condition, it retains all of its original copper luster. Professional third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC will carefully evaluate the coin's color, designating it as brown, red-brown, or the highly coveted full red, a mint state 67, full red 1947. Lincoln Wheat Penny is a breathtaking sight. The strike is incredibly sharp. The portrait of Lincoln stands out with spectacular three-dimensional relief, and the original fiery red copper color practically glows under a halogen light. Because so few of these coins survived in this elite state of preservation, registry set collectors, those who compete against one another to build the finest known sets in the world, will engage in fierce bidding wars when one appears at a major auction house. A beautifully preserved certified gem from 1947 can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on its population report, eye appeal, and lack of contact marks. The difference between a coin worth pocket change and a coin worth a small fortune is simply how well it survived the brutal passage of time. 1951, Lincoln Wheat Penny. Moving forward just a few years, we find ourselves in the early 1950s. The 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny was born into a vastly different global climate. The United States was now heavily engaged in the Korean War. The Cold War tensions were steadily rising, and the fear of nuclear conflict loomed in the background of everyday life. Yet, on the home front, the American middle class was booming. Suburbs were expanding at unprecedented rates. Television sets were becoming a staple in the American living room, and the demand for everyday consumer goods was skyrocketing. To fuel this massive wave of mid-century commerce, the United States Mint continued its relentless production of coinage, pumping out hundreds of millions of 1951 Lincoln Wheat Pennies. These little copper coins were the lifeblood of the local economy. They were used by children to buy comic books and candy, dropped into neighborhood jukeboxes, and exchanged in every grocery store across the nation. When examining the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny, you are presented with the exact same iconic imagery that has defined this series since its inception. Victor David Brenner's stoic, thoughtful portrait of Abraham Lincoln dominates the obverse, accompanied by Liberty, In God We Trust, and the 1951 date. Just like the 1947 issue, you must immediately drop your eyes below the date to search for a mint mark. The Philadelphia Mint produced a staggering number of pennies without a mint mark. The Denver Mint stamped theirs with a bold D, and the San Francisco Mint applied their signature S. During this specific era of the early 1950s, production quality varied wildly between the three mint facilities. Minting coins by the hundreds of millions requires massive steel dies that crash down onto blank copper planchets with tons of physical force. Over time, these steel dies begin to crack, wear down, and fill with microscopic debris. This is where the serious investigation of a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny truly begins. Experienced numismatists do not just look at the date and assume they know the coin's value. They pull out their high-powered jeweler's loupes and study the strike quality with intense scrutiny. During 1951, many of the dies used at the Denver and San Francisco mints were pushed far beyond their intended lifespan. As a result, you will often find 1951 pennies with very weak strikes. You might notice that the hair details on the top of Lincoln's head look completely smooth and flat, not because the coin was worn down in circulation, but because the die was too tired to press the details into the metal. The reverse might show wheat stalks that look mushy, or the letters in E pluribus unum might bleed directly into the rim of the coin. However, when a collector finds a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny that was struck by a brand new fresh pair of dies, it is an entirely different story. A fully struck early die state 1951 penny is a marvel of industrial manufacturing. Every single strand of Lincoln's hair is distinctly separated. The bow tie is razor sharp. The wheat lines on the reverse are deeply etched and perfectly defined. These sharply struck coins are the ones that professional collectors obsess over. The difference in market value between a weakly struck, uncirculated coin and a sharply struck, uncirculated coin from the exact same year can be astronomically high. It is a game of microscopic details, where the sharpness of a single letter or the depth of a single line can translate to massive premiums on the auction block. Furthermore, the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny is highly scrutinized for potential mint errors. Because the mint was operating at such a frantic pace to supply the booming economy, mistakes inevitably slip through the cracks of quality control. Advanced collectors are constantly on the hunt for double dies, where the hubbing process creates a misalignment, resulting in a distinct doubling of the letters or the date. They look for repunched mint marks, a fascinating error where the mint employee manually hammered the D or the S mint mark into the die incorrectly the first time, and then hammered it again, leaving a faint outline of the first letter beneath the second. They search for off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and coins struck on the wrong metal blanks entirely. Discovering a genuine, authenticated mint error on a 1951 penny can instantly turn a common pocket change find into a museum-quality artifact worth a substantial amount of money. But once again, the greatest threat to discovering one of these rare treasures is the human instinct to clean things that look dirty. A 1951 penny has been surviving in the wild for well over 70 years. If it spent decades sitting in a damp basement, buried in the soil or rattling around in the bottom of a greasy toolbox, it is going to look incredibly rough. It might be coated in a thick layer of black grime or suffering from localized copper corrosion. When you find a coin looking this sad, you must suppress every urge you have to try and fix it. You cannot fix history if you rub that coin with your thumb, if you use a pencil eraser to try and shine the high points, or if you dunk it into a jewelry cleaning solution, you have instantly ruined it. Experienced collectors have a deep, profound respect for original surfaces, no matter how ugly they might appear to a novice. They understand that a dark, crusty patina is a protective barrier that the copper naturally formed to defend itself against the elements. When you strip that barrier away, you expose raw, unnaturally bright metal that screams of tampering and alteration. The market for cleaned coins is essentially non-existent among serious buyers. They will gladly pay a premium for a heavily worn, naturally brown 1951 penny over a heavily worn, artificially polished 1951 penny every single time. So if you ever dump a jar of coins onto your kitchen table and spot that 1951 date staring back at you, treat it with the utmost respect. Handle it only by the extreme outer edges to prevent the acidic oils on your fingertips from etching your fingerprints permanently into the copper. Place it carefully into a safe, inert plastic holder and let a professional evaluate its strike, its originality, and its hidden potential. 1952. Lincoln Wheat Penny. As we move into the heart of the 1950s, we arrive at the incredible story of the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year 1952 represents the absolute peak of mid-century American culture. The baby boom was in full swing, rock and roll was beginning to find its roots, and American industry was an unstoppable juggernaut. To keep pace with this rapidly expanding society, the United States Mint was forced to produce an unfathomable amount of coinage. Across all three mint facilities, well over 1 billion Lincoln Wheat pennies were struck with the 1952 date. Let that number sink in. Over 1 billion individual copper coins poured out of the minting presses and into the American economy. Because of this massive mintage, the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is often dismissed by casual observers as being entirely too common to hold any real collector value. They assume that because so many were made, they must be worthless. That assumption is one of the most financially dangerous mistakes a person can make in the world of numismatics. While it is absolutely true that 1 billion 1952 pennies were minted, the brutal reality of circulation dictates that the vast, overwhelming majority of them were systematically destroyed over the next 7 decades. They were left on railroad tracks, dropped into sewer grates, lost in the dirt, corroded by moisture, and worn down until they were completely smooth and unrecognizable. Finding a 1952 penny in your pocket change today is becoming increasingly difficult. But finding one that has survived in absolutely pristine, unblemished condition is like finding a needle in a global haystack. This is the great paradox of the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny. It is a coin that is simultaneously incredibly common in poor condition and breathtakingly rare in perfect condition. For the advanced collector, inspecting a 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is a masterclass in reading the history of the striking process. Because the mint was pushing their equipment to the absolute breaking point to achieve that billion coin mintage. The 1952 series is notorious for a fascinating rare of die deterioration issues. When the steel dies are subjected to that much relentless pounding, they inevitably begin to crack and chip. One of the most famous and highly sought-after anomalies from this specific era is the legendary BIE error. As the die struck millions of copper blanks, a tiny piece of the steel die would frequently break off exactly between the letters B and E in the word liberty on the obverse. When that broken die struck the next blank planche, the copper metal would flow up into the empty cavity, creating a raised, distinct blob of copper that looked exactly like a capital letter I. Collectors go absolutely crazy searching for these 1952 BIE errors. It turns the word liberty into liberty. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a tiny scratch or a piece of dirt stuck to the coin. But to a specialized collector, it is a documented, highly collectible mint anomaly that carries a distinct premium. Beyond the famous BIE errors, the intense production pressure of 1952 also resulted in spectacular die cracks. You can often find 1952 pennies where a jagged, lightning bolt-shaped line of raised copper runs right through Abraham Lincoln's skull or cascades down through the wheat stalks on the reverse. These die cracks are physical proof of the extreme violence taking place inside the minting chamber. They are unique fingerprints that tell the story of a specific steel die slowly breaking apart under the pressure of American industry. The psychological aspect of collecting the 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is truly fascinating. When a collector sees a beautifully toned, flawlessly preserved 1952 penny sitting in a certified plastic slab, they are not just looking at a piece of money. They are looking at a frozen moment in time. They are looking at a piece of copper that somehow survived the golden age of American prosperity without ever being touched. It never bought a bottle of Coca-Cola. It never rattled around in a classic car's ashtray, and it never suffered the abuse of a mechanical vending machine. To preserve a coin like this requires decades of extreme discipline and careful storage. This brings us to the crucial role of professional third-party grading. If you believe you have found a 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny that is completely free of wear, still blazing with its original copper-red luster, and totally devoid of any dark spots or environmental damage, you cannot simply declare it to be a gem. In the high-stakes world of rare coin collecting, personal opinions mean very little. The coin must be sent to an independent group of experts at PCGS or NGC. These professionals will examine the coin in a specialized grading laboratory. They will view the surfaces under intense magnification, checking for the slightest hint of friction on Lincoln's cheekbone or the highest tips of the wheat ears. They will map out every microscopic contact mark or tiny bag mark that the coin received when it was originally dumped into a canvas mint bag in 1952. If the coin survives this rigorous inspection and achieves a grade of mint state 67 full red, its value explodes. At major numismatic auctions, elite collectors will aggressively battle over these top-tier survivors. The bidding is not driven by the face value of the coin, but by the extreme difficulty of finding one that survived perfectly. The person who bids thousands of dollars on a 1952 penny is paying for the miracle of its preservation. They are paying for the right to own the absolute finest known example of a coin that a billion other people threw away. This is exactly why you must completely change the way you look at your pocket change. The next time you are cleaning out a closet, sorting through a deceased relative's belongings, or just emptying your pockets at the end of a long day, do not dismiss the dark, dirty, ordinary-looking pennies. Stop what you are doing. Pick them up. Turn on a bright light, grab a magnifying glass, and truly look at what you are holding. Look at the date. Look for the mint mark. Study the strike for die cracks, errors, or repunched letters. Respect the natural, unclean surfaces that have taken 70 years to develop. The 1947, 1951, and 1952 Lincoln Wheat Pennies are not just pieces of obsolete currency. They are tangible, surviving chapters of the American story. They are waiting patiently in jars, cigar boxes, and bank rolls for someone with the knowledge and the patience to finally recognize their true worth. The only question left is whether you will be the one to discover them, or if you will be the one who accidentally spends a fortune because you did not take the time to look.